Hi everyone, happy Easter. Welcome to Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Got a pretty interesting one for you today. I say that every week, but this should be interesting, all about fashion watches. But before I do that, let's we are expecting somebody to join a bit later, but we'll go through the current panel. So should we do a bit of a wristwatch check, Patrick? Pocket watch time on the YouTube.
I'm wearing a watch that I will eventually finish the video for, but I'm wearing my new Formex Space Rock.
Nice.
So it's a ceramic bezeled, carbon cased, meteorite dialed hodgepodge of every element on the earth and above. So just kind of a fun little watch, and it's a limited edition that I was able to get my hands on, and I like limited editions. I like weird materials, so winner.
Awesome. Pete from the Pete McConville YouTube channel, what are you wearing?
I am wearing this. It's little, where do we go? There, little mid-90s Gerard Perregaux Traveler 7000.
Very cool.
Oh, wow.
It's a lovely little piece. Picked it up extraordinarily cheaply, and then you know how Chrono 24 gives you that, sort of the price of your piece now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd buy it now.
Based on the time period, is that quartz or automatic?
Automatic.
Okay, just curious.
But it's an untrue GMT.
Okay.
In that it's an actual untrue GMT, in that you can't set the 24-hour hand. It's like the original GMT master. You can't set the GMT hand separately. It's slaved to the main hour hand. So the only way you get a GMT is by changing the bezel. So I think it's compulsory for everyone who uses the word true GMT to own a watch like this for a little while to know what that word bloody means.
We're starting the watch drama early.
We're going early.
Todd, what you wearing?
So tonight I'm wearing one of my favorites. It's a unsung hero of the Tudor family. It is the Tudor style with the fluted bezel, or basically Tudor's version of the Datejust. I know everybody thinks the Royale is, but this is it. This is it. But no one sees this watch.
Do they still make that, Todd? The style?
I think they do. It's just deep in their website. Like, you have to be a Tudor fan to find it. You have to go down and down, and you have to look for classic watches. It's not easy to find because everything's Black Bay.
Yeah, because I just did a video talking about a deep dive into Tudor, and I did that, and I could not find the style at all. So
I'll have to look because they're missing. If they get rid of it, they're just missing a boat, I think, because the Royale is nice, but the style was just such a classic. I know, Pete, you're not a Tudor fan. That's fine. I get it. But it's a classic three-hander. It just works dress. It works casual. It's 100 meters of water resistance. I love this watch.
Awesome. And then I'll round it out. I'm wearing my Seiko GMT. I don't know if it's true GMT. The hour hand works independently. That's my Seiko. I just put it on a little leather number there. Yeah, well, I wore it all week on its stock bracelet, and I was traveling a bit with it, and I don't know, it's just not. It needs a proper diver's ratchet, so I could just let it out a little bit. It's not. It looks okay, but it's just not that comfortable. But anyway. So, well, first of all, before we dive into it, I'm probably not going to mention this again, but if you saw my video on Hermes watches, I was very kindly invited onto the Bobby Legs YouTube channel, and we actually did a deep dive into the video that I made about my 5 reasons why you're lying to yourself about Hermes watches. So if you want to check that out, Bobby Legs YouTube channel, you'll see the one that's featuring me, and it was a great panel discussion as well. And I noticed that quite a few people, especially Bill Kay, and I think a few of you others, 911 Dan, thanks for commenting. I think you guys joined that as well. So thanks for commenting on there. So that was the first one. But to the main topic of today, and we are basically talking about the Morgan Stanley watch report, which was, let me just pull this up here, which for for the last 3 years has had probably maybe a surprising second place contender of Cartier. So Cartier's actually overtook Omega, which led us to the question about, is Cartier a fashion brand? And then leading from there, what do we think is a fashion brand? And is there any fashion brands that we wouldn't buy no matter what type of watch they made? So we've got a couple examples to go through, but as always, please keep the comments going in the comment section. If you've got any comments about this or any ideas on watches, let us know. So I guess does anybody on the panel own what might be considered as a fashion watch?
I don't, but I really want to, if that makes sense. And it depends what you mean by considered by a fashion watch. If you mean Daniel Wellington or something like that, then no. Yeah. So if you mean, on the other hand, a watch that's been made by someone that's more famous as a fashion house, so we're probably talking Chanel, Bulgari, Hermes, Louis Vuitton. But if I go through the list of watches that I'm really interested in buying that are very close, right now, there's a Hermes H08, possibly a Bulgari Roma. What's the other one I really like? Yeah, so I love that. The black and blue is just so cool.
Yeah.
And a Chopard, either a Chopard Mille Miglia with a red dial or a Chopard World Timer. So if my next mainstream watch, we'll call that as opposed to an indie, will be from one of those brands. That's just a given. It's one of those watches is going to be my next one. And the one on the screen right now is a very high contender.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful watch. I really like that Hermes.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. The Cartier. So I'll just go out there and be the guy who will bear the wrath of 2023. The Cartier phenomenon really is. It's a woman's brand, and it is a very popular brand in that milieu. Also because they're buying battery powered watches. They're not necessarily buying an automatic watch. They're buying a piece of jewelry, but Cartier makes an awesome watch. But I think a bulk of their sales might come from the ease of use market.
Yeah, my thinking about Cartier, I've got no figures to prove this, but my thinking on Cartier is that its long historic, sales of huge numbers of quartz watches to women got it to third place.
Yep.
But what jumped it and took it from third to second was men getting on board. And
yes,
it was things like the Santos making it okay for a man to own a Cartier. So like I said, I completely agree with you. The Cartier got to third on the back of selling women's pieces, and it made that one last jump on the back of men getting on board.
100% agree, Pete. This is the first time you and I have 100% agreed on this channel. Yes.
Well, even though I'm not going to be as bold as Todd and say that no man should wear a Cartier.
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
let the record reflect. Todd said.
I'm trying to get Todd in deep trouble, but what I think has really pushed it in the last 3 years, and actually this is going to be a fun topic, influencers.
Yeah, agreed.
Within 3 years, that's the height of the Rolex bubble, and all of the influencers didn't have anything to talk about. So they went down the line and they talked about, and that's all of a sudden when they brought up the Cartier Santos, which sorry, Santos lovers, I don't like it. I've never liked it, still don't like it. And, but influencers started talking about how great it was. next thing you know, you see it on people's wrists on the old YouTube, and next thing you know, exactly what you said, Todd. Men are going out and buying Santoses, and now it's number 2.
Now,
I think there's
go ahead, Pete. Go ahead, Pete.
I think there's an element of truth to that, but I don't think it's influencers picking it up because they had nothing else to talk about. And I'm saying this only because I did a deep dive on the history of the Santos a couple of months ago. The Santos was an absolute dog. It didn't sell at all for I was about to say Chanel, for Cartier. It did so poorly that Cartier pulled it off the market. I'm going to say sometime around 2017, 2018. And they brought it back inside and they gave it a complete overhaul. It doesn't look like it, but if you look at if you put the two watches next to each other, they really did butch it up as much as you can butch up a Chanel, a Cartier. And then when they relaunched with a really aggressive campaign. Stephen Pulverant did an article on Hodinkee where he talked about how Cartier fundamentally changed its entire marketing approach as of around about 2018, 2019 to bring in a whole new audience with the new Santos. And I think that brought the influencers along, not the other way around. I think Cartier went out and found a new audience. They went through, to plug my own video, that I put out last night, they deliberately went through an expansion phase where they carefully plotted out a media campaign, changed the way they represent themselves to a new group, and quite carefully made it okay for guys to wear a Cartier.
Yeah, and I think they did the same thing just recently with the Tank Francais, where they definitely butched that one up because it now is very angular and very like rugged. It looks nothing like the original to me.
Completely agree. This is I think it does help that I think Cartier is the only brand where people
top, Sam.
Yeah. I think Cartier is the only brand that is a genuine Rolex alternative. And what I mean by a Rolex alternative is if you're kind of thinking you want to buy a Rolex, but you end up buying a Tudor or an Omega or a Breitling, then it's kind of obvious that deep down you secretly really did want the Rolex. But if you make the jump so sideways that you end up buying a Cartier, then you can even convince yourself that this was not a Rolex substitute.
Mm-hmm.
So my view is Cartier is the only company that really makes any real benefit out of the fact you can't buy Rolexes.
If you go back to the Cartier Santos, the one thing that seems to be working right now is that it has that sort of 70s Genta vibe with, the screws on the front, and it has that whole kind of integrated bracelet look, although it may not be, but it has that vibe. And I think that's also one of the benefits they're having right now. They're winning because the trend is in the direction of this look, and they're just killing it. Like, I mean, that watch, and I know you say they butched it up. My wife and I both want one. I want the medium. She wants the small, and we're going to be happy. but this watch is, it wasn't on my radar until I think Pete said it, the Rolex shortage became I think it's a gorgeous watch. I'd love to have one.
It's not my thing, but I can certainly understand why people want one.
Same.
Yeah. It's a beautiful watch.
Yeah, I totally agree, Pete. This isn't my thing. I don't like the old Roman numerals on there, but I can see why people like it. It is an icon, isn't it?
Yep.
Accessible.
Yeah, I'll be the outsider. Icons mean nothing to me. I still look at it and I don't see anything I like.
In fact, I don't think it can be an icon, because for me, one of the tests of an icon is it can't ever get discontinued. And by that, I mean, it can get overhauled, it can get whatever. But if a brand thinks so little of the watch that they take it off the market and don't immediately replace it, it's by definition not an icon.
Yeah.
I can't fight you. Can't fight you on that. I just like the look of it.
But yeah.
You win, but I still like it.
Yeah. Peter here saying the solar Cartier is cool, but I think I was watching on Theo and Harris, and they were making reference to the fact that the solar modules might be going because they were hard to source for Cartier or something. So yeah, I should have been better with my definition of fashion watch, because it's kind of changed, hasn't it? I should have been like a high fashion company that makes watches, because when I was growing up, fashion watches were all about it. I wore a diesel jeans watch for ages. And then what the genesis of this, and one of the ones that I think about is that they couldn't make a watch that I would buy, because sins of the past for me is Armani. I can't put two and two together that Armani, with all of the fashion watches that they made, and some of them were awful. I know people that really loved and bought Armani watches, and they ended up falling to bits, a lot of them. I don't think there's a watch that they could make that I would buy, no matter how good it was.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I couldn't. Armani has pissed in the well one too many times. I just can't see myself going there. And a real, you know what? I think Gucci falls into that category for me as well. I mean, they're going hard now on really high on really high horology. But
look at this micro rotor, you're spot on.
Yeah, but I just can't. And look, to be honest, it's also Gucci as a fashion brand is just not someone that I can ever see myself wearing.
It's actually not too horrible. I mean, my kind of quick take, at least on, let's say, the fashion brands, I don't care what the brand is on the dial. I just don't want it in my face. So, for example, I kind of have a spicy-ish video coming up, not because it was meant to be spicy, but it just turned out that way. I mean, if we really look back at the history, I mean, Audemars Piguet was a fashion brand. They went out and they hired Gerald Genta to pretty much make a fashionable watch. And, it is now the staple of their company. And just because we've forgotten about that over 30 years, we're okay with AP as a brand. But really, they sold out to be a fashion brand. And they, obviously make nice watches, but their base is a fashion brand. Like a Gucci watch with a giant gold G on it, hell no, I'm not buying that. But looking at this, I mean, this actually kind of looks a lot like the Speak Marin Ripple. And, that's a watch I actually kind of like. I agree with you a bit there, Pete, that, just seeing the Gucci name on there kind of biases me a little. But this at least looks like a real watch, where most of the watches I've seen when I've walked past, like the window of Gucci, it's a big G, it's like some giant leopard brand thing. And, they're intentionally trying to be ugly. And this one isn't that bad.
Yeah. I think.
Go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, so I mean, I've got a Gucci wallet, so, and that wasn't a flex, just to show you that I think they do make some good stuff. I know my wife has a couple of handbags and stuff, and they're kind of an affordable flex, aren't they? But I think the problem is that, yes, they might make some okay watches now, but for years they sold out. It's like when they all started to do like aftershaves and perfumes early on, and they got these companies to white label them, and you could easily tell that the watches that they originally made, like Armani's still an example of this, where they're very cheap quartz watches, and they just stamp the name on. And now I feel like, okay, well, your first instinct was to kind of rip people off with a brand name, and now you're trying to be like a legit kind of horological company, a contributor to the world of horology. It just doesn't sit comfortably with me. It's like they really traded on some real, budget watches that they sold for a premium
Yeah, so for me, Armani's probably the furthest away because for so long they were essentially just Daniel Wellingtons with an Armani written on them. I think Gucci would be the next step, and then something a few people have mentioned in the or a brand that a few people have mentioned in the comments is Ralph Lauren. They really teeter backwards and forwards. It's like every now and then they do something that's amazing, that's fantastic, and you think, you guys are a real watch company, and then they do some utter trash. They're a really difficult. They teeter on the edge for me. And yeah, I'm never buying one with a bear with Paddington.
Yeah, but look at this. I mean, I looked at this and I thought, okay, these because I was trying to find those dead expensive ones. So I was like, okay, this is the obviously we've got to the $200 ones, the fast fashion ones. They're bloody $2,100. Yeah, I'm amazed by that. Does it say what movement's in there? Oh, is that their RL 200 caliber, which I wonder what that is.
Miota 8,000.
It's 38 hours and 26 joules. So it's a ETA to 28-24.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
I wouldn't have expected that high.
It's really easy. Just look at the joule count and the power reserve. It tells you.
Yeah.
Let me actually look that. I'll actually look that up whilst everyone's having a chat.
Yeah, my thought where we're going was like if I see Gucci, and it's watch snobbery all the way, right? Like we don't want to be those guys, but if I see the Gucci, I'm assuming like, oh yeah, it's a nice Kohl's department store watch, whatever. It's cool. It's I'm sure it's quartz. I wouldn't have even thought that they had an automatic movement in it. You're just like,
yeah. Yes, so Pete, you might be right here. I mean, this article I found online is saying it's the Solita SW200, but there and thereabouts, it's the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit cheeky of me, but as far as I'm concerned, and maybe this is one of the reasons why I jump sideways into a different topic. People say, oh, I need to know where the movement's from. Someone's got to tell me that it's a Solita base. And it's like, mate, 38 or 42 hours, 28 or 29 joules. Look at those two numbers, you know exactly where the watch came from.
Yep.
They're like the horological fingerprints of a third-party movement.
Yeah, I'm just surprised it didn't have like a Miota or a Seiko movement in it. Like the fact that it had actually Swiss movement, I was like, oh, okay, all right.
Hey, it's not 1990s tag. But these are the so I mean, but they have got these obviously more high horology pieces. So they've got this chronograph here with that distinctive sort of like almost like a belt buckle style case, and this one is, I mean, that's $8,700, isn't it? I'm
curious what movement that one's got. It's not going to fit the 7750.
No, yeah, well, it says RL 750. So I wonder whether that's
that number's way convenient in 7750.
Yeah, there's no way there's a 7750 in that. There'll be half the size.
Yeah,
but I mean, the watch is obviously not my style, but I applaud them for making something that is way unique. I mean, you look at that and you're like, it's fashionable, but it actually is different. So, I don't think I've ever looked at Ralph Lauren watches. I'm having more respect for them today than I did yesterday.
Yeah,
and from a fashion house. Fashion house,
which should come as no surprise, because as I have famously said before, manufacture is easy and design is hard. Like if I had a killer design, a design that I knew was going to be super successful, I would say with 100% certainty that I could get it made. There are any number of people out there who could make a good design for me. But if I had a manufacturing capability that I knew could make any design that was given to it, but did not have that killer design that was going to be fantastic, I reckon I've got at best a 1 in 10 chance of being able to find someone who can have that killer design that's going to be massively successful. I'm not saying, and this is probably where I upset Dave, and particularly now that he's working with a brand that's famous for making stuff. I'm not saying that I could set up a watch manufacturing and I could I could make watches. But what I'm saying is, with very little work, you can find someone who can make anything. But finding someone who can design something, there's probably only a dozen people in the world who are designing interesting watches right now. And I mean individuals.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Watch Chris actually called this. So that is actually a JLC movement. And he actually has a Ralph Lauren that has an IWC case. So I don't think it might not be this style, but also that article on a blog to watch says, a Jaeger-LeCoultre Ultra chronograph movement is the yeah.
So as used by Audemars Piguet.
So again, how much is the watch now? Because now you're getting a JLC movement in an IWC case for what?
8,700. I don't know if this case is made by IWC, but there is they have been making cases for them.
That becomes not crazy now. When we started, that was a crazy price, but now you're like, okay, not crazy price.
But I mean, I wonder who I know there is Ralph Lauren collectors, because there was a weird Netflix show that had this guy who used to go around buying, pre-owned Ralph Lauren stuff, and it has some real high-end celebrity collectors. But it was I don't know who the market is for this. A Ralph Lauren at 8,700. I mean, that's nearly I suppose it's a date just price, but it's also you're getting a chronograph.
Yeah, right. You're getting a JLC chronograph for the price of a date just is intense.
Yeah, that's a watch where you really like the look of it, isn't it? Rather than necessarily the brand, I'm guessing, because it's so distinctive.
Or conversely, you are really appealing to the if you know crowd.
Right.
I mean, this is almost this is becoming so kind of in the weeds. You're crossing a line from, I know watches because I buy Rolex and I don't buy fashion brands. Now you're punching through that and getting to a zone of, I know watches so well that I know that this fashion brand has a case made by IWC and JLC. And if you look down on it, I look down on you.
You're right. You're right.
Well, look at this 18 grand here.
This isn't stealth wealth. This is stealth knowledge.
Yeah.
This is, I secretly know more than you think you know.
Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It's a little bit of what Grand Seiko was 20 years ago when it was just living in Japan. If you saw someone walking around with a Grand Seiko, you're like, ooh, watches.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting how, and this is right into the Ralph Lauren kind of brand with that looking like a horse stirrup, like leaning right into it.
We got cowbell here. So 911 Dan says cowbell, and then
stirrup.
Well, actually, it would be a stirrup. It would be a stirrup, wouldn't it? Because it's Ralph Lauren is a the
horse brand.
Horse-inspired.
It could be worse. Was it Cartier did one last year, I think, which was just a breast.
Is that the crash?
No, they did one. They did one that was kind of, it was hard on one side and then came around,
like and
and then they even went and made the blue gem red, and it was just a nipple.
Well, I want to get myself demonetized, but I don't know if it's on here. Is it?
I don't know. I don't know if they still make it. It was huge at the time. It was a clock de Cartier or something.
You just made one pair, did they?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember seeing it now.
But so you can set it down on the table and it sits pretty.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
Oh wow.
A lot of watches though.
They really do, don't they? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, next one is one that I always think is an interesting one. Is Chanel. What Chanel do? I mean, I think Pete, both you and I called out this one that was at Watches and Wonders. This crazy one with the cybernetic.
Yeah, I love that watch. I think Chanel aren't consistent enough that I could see myself ever becoming like a Chanel super collector or anything, because they'll go through periods where there's like nothing. But when they let themselves loose, they do some really interesting things. And this, I just love this.
Yeah, because it does look. They do a good job of making an expensive watch look cheap to me. I don't know, because that does that could almost be not a swatch, but you know it. I know these are all ceramic, which obviously in a picture makes it look like it could be plastic. So I don't know. There's not one that this is their famous one, isn't it? The J12.
Yeah, I've just got to put a little filter in my head and say you cannot judge a ceramic watch by what you see on a render. You just can't.
Yeah, wow. Look at that. That's a $40,000 one. I didn't realize they went up that quite that high.
Mm-hmm.
Super
retrograde movement or something. What's going on?
Yeah, well, that's a jump hour, and they play in the realm of Chanel or of Cartier, where most of their watches are just kind of not so great, but then they make some really stellar pieces. So, Chanel isn't completely out there. They do some pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, it just says a manual wine mechanical movement. Hey, I wonder if it's the Christopher Ward JJ01 that's in there. The jump hour. That would be funny.
Could be.
Yeah, it's got the 60-second counter as well. Yeah, it's an interesting one for me. Chanel. I mean, their handbags have really got very expensive because when I go in to look with my wife, but there's no watch that's really drawn to me. Although I did like that one. I'm sure at Watches and Wonders they had one of these with diamonds on it.
Yeah, I think there was one also bedazzled.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of comments coming in there. So 911 Dan says I have a Bulgari. Doesn't bother me that they are known for jewelry. Brassic Times says there are acceptable fashion brands that make proper quality watches. Pete's Choice, Hermes, and Chopard. And then a Palm saying Bulgari and Hermes are definitely making decent pieces.
Yeah, and I think that wraps it up. I think that wraps it up just perfect for me in terms of I'm not necessarily drawn to the brand, but if the brand makes a watch that draws me, I'm not offended by it. Like Louis Vuitton, I know 3 or 4 years ago made some divers, and they were ugly as sin. I mean, they were weird colors, but the watches were actually really well made and nice. I just didn't care for their color palette. And same thing with Chanel, their J12, they were one of the pioneers of making a ceramic watch, and that's really kind of cool. And they both make some high-end pieces. In Bulgari, I love the Octofonismo, and they do lots of different things with metal and textures and colors. So I like it, but in general, yes, I steer clear of them unless I find a reason not to steer clear of them.
Yeah. And Louis Vuitton just bought Gerald Genta and the entire back catalog. So you can look forward to seeing a whole bunch of Genta designs.
Did they buy it from Bulgari? Because I thought Bulgari.
Yeah. Well, they're all part of the same group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
because there was a rumor that they were going to buy. Was it the rumor that they were going to buy Richemont as well?
Yeah, they were talking about buying Richemont, and that would give them Cartier, is that LVMH would want.
Yeah, and JLC's in there as well, isn't it? Is it Richemont?
Yeah,
JLC and Richemont. Yeah.
Bulgari and Cartier are both ones who seem to have kind of pulled off that trajectory, or kind of pulled away from. I don't see them just as that fashion brand now. Like, they're making watches, and maybe Ralph Lauren and them are hoping they get into that space, but like I see them as like, oh, they're watchmakers. They make amazing watches, but I'll be curious to see where these others go, especially what we just talked about, where others are buying the movement manufacturers.
Yeah. Well, Chanel owns, as Watch Chris said, Chanel owns a chunk of FP Journe. They're an investor in Kinesi. They own a chunk of that. Louis Vuitton bought a movement maker and so they've got their own movement maker, and they make some really high-end stuff that they sell off catalog. Hermes, I don't think owns anyone, but does a huge amount of work directly with manufacturers, as does Bulgari. Has both an in-house capability, and also they're deeply into bed with Concepto, who help them with a lot of their ultra thin stuff. So yeah, these guys, they are serious watchmakers.
Yeah, the one that I think I changed my opinion on the most was Montblanc, because when they started doing watches at the very start, I was very skeptical because they all had that like Fotina. They were sort of had like cathedral hands. They were like sort of field watches, and it looked like that they were just sort of, dabbling in it a little bit. But been so impressed with them over the last couple of years. I mean, they've really put the investment in.
It is funny when we all started talking about like fashion brands, we immediately went to like the fashion brands that are more directed at women. But it's interesting that Montblanc, and I'm going to be a little bit spicy here, Porsche design never seem to get tarred with that brush. No one ever says, I would never buy these watches because of their fashion origins. So I do wonder if perhaps fashion, I don't like fashion brands is code for, I just don't want girly watches.
I don't know. I feel like Montblanc is one I've struggled with because of that. So I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm on the same side. I struggle with it a little bit too. And their only good watch for me is their Minerva, which is a chronograph, which means I'm not interested anyway.
This one's a beauty. I'm like obsessed about this watch. I know. Dave, Scott. Dave who usually joins us, Scottish Watches. Dave, he's got this or a version of this. I think this is awesome looking. This is what changed my mind.
I'm obsessed with the. I think it's the 1858 Geosphere, preferably in bronze with a green dial. I'm going to have one of those one day.
Yeah, is it this one, this Geosphere here?
Yeah. Not that particular configuration, but
okay. Yeah. Because they are building a design language now, aren't they? They've got this, and they bought a full almost a turnkey watch movement company, didn't they? So everything is in house. They bought the whole movement company, and I don't know whether they saved the movement company from going under or what, but they certainly. I think that's what surprised me, was that they didn't just outsource it with the Montblanc name. They essentially bought the entire company and started making watches almost in house.
Well, that's the Minerva side of it. I don't know about the like cases and everything. Most of the I think a lot of the three-handers are all Solitas and ETAs underneath.
Okay. Look at those fashionable chaps there.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I don't know, from like the late 90s, how there was a guy I worked with in a sales office. It was so important to him to have a Montblanc pen so he could show people how successful he was. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, the Montblanc. I remember I bought a Montblanc fountain pen on my honeymoon. Yeah. I thought it's, but I went for the entry level one, and boy was it entry level. So I ended up selling it in the end. But it wasn't like the Meister Struck or whatever it's called. Well, it's amazing, isn't there? I mean, this is a whole side. There's a lot of guys that are really into watches that I've met that collect fountain pens or collect like books. It's like a weird, and cars obviously is a known one, but yeah, there's a lot of people who collect fountain pens that also collect watches. I think just maybe because of that old school sort of mechanical. Is that you, Patrick? Was that
No. The podcast you were just on with Bobby Legs, Sanjay, he's got his own podcast, and he likes pens, and whenever he starts talking about pens, everyone in the chat pretty much starts making fun of it, because they know for about 10 or 15 minutes they're going to go down a rabbit hole of pins. And so laugh, but you're right.
Yeah.
They're definitely, there is a community of watch guys who likes pins. I'm not.
Yeah, look, yeah, I think mechanical watches are fundamentally more about, they are an acceptable kind of fashion for men, as are Leica cameras and fountain pens. In all three cases, you've committed to, I'm buying something that's not as good as the modern variant. If I was really serious about making sure I got a photo, I wouldn't buy a Leica. If I was really serious about, I have to be able to write, you don't buy a fountain pen. And if you're really serious about, I have to tell the time, you've got quartz.
Yeah, I for years, this is a whole side stick, but I for years wrote in a fountain pen. In fact, I've still got some because in a biro, my hand is all over the place because I write too fast with it, so I can't read my writing. But I had to stop using them when I started traveling for work because they do not like planes.
No.
No.
You try being a left-hander and using a fountain pen on an aeroplane. It's a recipe.
Well, yeah, it just kind of goes everywhere, doesn't the pressure of the thing. So, so Bill Case here is saying that Porsche watches were made by a Turner for a while. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Porsche watches I think they've had tie-ins with a Turner. They've had tie-ins with IWC. They're perfectly good watches. And there are some of them which are quite collectible in their own way, but
yeah.
They're kind of like a generic design house, like Braun or someone like that.
Oh yeah, but the Braun watch, I like the Braun watches. But because I remember Porsche design in the, I guess, early 2000s, late 90s. They were throwing that on everything, weren't they? And I think that kind of sullied the brand a bit because there was all sorts of crap that had Porsche design. They did like colognes and all sorts of stuff that they were just knocking out like nobody's business. Same with Ralph Lauren, I guess. But
hard drives. You can get a hard drive.
Yes, I remember those. Yeah.
Did they do a phone as well?
Oh, I'm sure they must.
Or is it just so obvious that, of course, they did a phone?
Yeah, they just threw it on there.
Yeah, because there was a lot of those, weren't there? There was like some really expensive. Actually, they still, although it'll be completely banned in the US, but they've got. They still make a Huawei one.
There you go.
Look at those
you
cameras.
Nailed it, Pete.
It's like 5 cameras, and it's a Leica camera on there, Pete. This is made for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Leica camera.
5 Leica cameras and a Porsche design phone. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally banned in the US, those will be. But I suppose I was actually looking at another one before we went there. Did I go? Yeah. So Tom Ford has just started doing watches as well, and I think was he the head designer? He was the head designer for Chanel, wasn't he? Or was it? He was a head designer for one of the fashion brands, but then he went down a separate route. And he did really well with his aftershaves and stuff, didn't he? All the different things. And I think recently he started doing watches, and I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that hour hand, to be honest, but being interested.
Everything from Cartier on that first one. It has a Santos bezel, a Cartier case shape. He just ripped off everything.
Oh yeah, and it says the number 003, so like Chanel number 5. This is the number 3, the number 2. You don't want the number 2, do you? You've got the number 1, and this with its sort of ocean plastic woven. So I wonder if the case is made of ocean plastic. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's only those
Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent.
Yeah, I wonder how much these are. Well, they're dear, aren't they? They're a dear do. That's $3,000.
I'm going to say I'm way out of it. Who's Tom Ford?
he used. So Tom Ford, I'm sure he used to be the head fashion designer for Chanel, but then he made You'll notice if you see like the aftershaves and perfumes, they're in a really distinctive like square bottle, and there's usually a line of them on the thing because he does like fragrances like leather and tobacco and burnt wood and stuff like that.
These are the kind of fragrances you get like at the drugstore.
We'll say dial soap, no shampoo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tom Ford. Oh yeah. Oh, actually, here you go. Whole Milk's got it. So Tom Ford was at Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent. So
Yeah.
Yves Saint Laurent. So there you go. So it wasn't Chanel. So he's obviously ripping off Chanel or homaging their brands. Was there any that we've missed? I'm sure there's a few that we've missed, haven't we? The high end
Well, we never touched on Hermes.
Yes. Okay. So back to Hermes. Here we go.
This is what will really freak me out. And if you look at that watch, okay, so that watch, and we as watch folk have a sense of value and what goes into making a watch. So that watch is what, $6.5 US.
Yeah.
Just for funsies, while you're on the site, go look at what they'll charge you for a hoodie.
Yeah,
right.
well, as well, if you went into a Hermes and they offered you a Birkin bag for 6,700, you'd bite their hand off. Because it's the Birkin, isn't it? That's actually
But for me, it's like not so much the bag, because that carries a whole bunch of stuff, but just goes to a ready to wear hoodie.
Knitwears and sweatshirts. Here we go.
Yeah, brace yourself for what these guys will charge you.
Oh yeah, there you go. Look at that.
Suddenly the watches look cheap.
Yeah, and Hermes is the same. Hermes is the one that I mean, they tar Rolex with this brush about having a purchase history, but I think it was Hermes that actually started off with that. To get a Birkin bag, you had to buy some stuff. So they have these like women's shoes that you essentially you find tons of them on eBay, because you actually have most people have to buy the shoes to get the to be on the list, and you'll find like loads of Hermes key rings and all sorts of stuff. There's like a standard shoe that they do that basically you just find it's this one here, it's this sandal. So you'll find like loads of these because it's people getting on the ladder and they're trying to find the most cost-effective way of getting purchase history. So you'll find these that they sell the most of, and also they've got I wonder if it's in home decor, or it might be essentially there's like a key rings that they that you'll see loads of them on eBay, because they have to it's part of the purchase history. So
yeah. I would say if you're going to go into that buy sell to get on the list for a bag, watches are the way to go, because actually those 808s are actually just on their own, they're not terrible value, and B, they actually resale really quite well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I wouldn't. Yeah, so if you let me see if they've got the. I'm giving like a masterclass in handbags here for some reason, but they haven't even got it on there. But the Birkin bag is their main one, isn't it? And that's the same. If you buy a Birkin bag at retail, you can flip it like a Rolex, or like back in the. I don't know if you can still do that with Rolex, but some of them certainly. But yes,
never knew.
Yeah,
Hermes is like it's the brand for people who buy the Rolex Celebration watch. You have enough money to this is just throwing away money.
Actually, in a strange way, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The Rolex Celebration watch and the Rolex Live, Pray, Love watch are for Hermes buyers.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're for people that are in this space who would never have bought a Rolex otherwise, because they're too serious and they're my grandma's watch and all that sort of thing. If you're spending $2,000 on a t-shirt and $3,000 on a tote, $8,000 on a bubble watch,
nothing,
or a Live, Pray, Die, Live, Pray, Die, whatever. Inspirational.
Well,
the emoji
the emoji just. I just to if anybody's thinking like, how do I know so much about Hermes? It's not because my wife buys Hermes stuff. It's producer Michael. That's how he started, wasn't it? His early videos were all about fashion stuff, and he used to go round these these resellers that had watches, and he would ask them about Birkin bags all the time. He's like, "Oh, what Birkin bags have you got in?" So he's like he's like a collector or you know, a wheeler and dealer in all luxury things, and that's how I ended up finding out about the Birkin bag. Just need to set the set the story straight there. Okay, I mean that was great. Let's see if we got. Did we star any more comments? Yes. So Orange Hand says Tom Ford isn't a watch designer with that hour hand. That is interesting. I'm wondering if there's any. We've probably missed some big brands, haven't we? That are fashion first, and then I'm trying to think of any that we might have missed. I mean, you've got the sort of mainstream fashion ones that also do watches, haven't you? Like Superdry and people like that just brand them. And then you've got that one company that makes all of the fashion watches. Basically, they make like Puma and Kate Spade and probably Michael Kors. They make all of them. I forget the name of the company, but there's like a white labeled company that just knocks out. Same with the Luxottica that makes the glasses for everyone. There's a watch company that does that.
There's a brand.
Burberry.
Does Burberry make one?
Let's have a look.
Because I'd be very curious. It's gonna have the same plaid pattern on the watch face.
Yeah. Let's have a look. So,
I got dragged into Michael Kors yesterday, and I saw a pair of sunglasses that had like little MKs all over it. And when you bought the sunglasses, you got a free watch.
Oh,
really?
That's almost as good as Invicta.
So,
yeah. I can't find it. I don't think there is a watch on Burberry. I certainly couldn't find it.
Interesting.
Unless they don't do men's watches. Let's have a look.
They're missing a market.
Let's have a look. Oh.
Now, Whole Milk mentioned VC and A. I don't know. I mean, Vacheron Constantine, but I don't know what the and A is. Does anyone know what
either?
Let's have a look.
Whole Milk, what is that?
Burberry definitely makes watches, according to Jack.
Van Cleef. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Van Cleef and Arpels. They are insane.
Yeah, they make ugly watches that are really cool.
See, I don't think they're ugly. Some of them are, but they're like some of them aren't for me.
There's that one.
I'm waiting for a non-ugly one.
No, and like the one they had this. I mean, they're definitely concept pieces, but I couldn't call that ugly. I can call that not for me. I can call that a million and one other things.
Fair enough.
Ugly just doesn't. No, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, did they make the amazing clock as well? Wasn't there an amazing clock that was like a bird?
I can't even read the time on those ones.
Yeah, if you go back to those other ones, you tell the time by what flowers are opening.
Oh my goodness!
No, that one there.
Yeah, you count the flowers to see how many are open to tell what time it is.
Yeah,
here.
No, I think there's actually I think there's actually even a code to it. You have to kind of learn which flowers mean which things. These pieces have like 700 moving parts, and there's 3 people in the world that can make them. This is FP Journe level and above.
Wow,
watchmaking.
Yeah, I would say.
Lady Harper, yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? I'm sure there was I don't know whether maybe it's under Creations, but there was I'm sure they made a clock. There was something at Watches and Wonders that just looked absolutely incredible, where it was kind of open.
I remember that one. Yeah.
It probably was theirs. Yeah, they usually make some pretty automaton-looking machines.
Yeah. So Bruno's saying Harry Winston, jewelry first, watches second. I don't know whether we would.
I think that's true. I think Harry Winston did begin life as a jeweler. But on the other hand, Bruno, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure Harry Winston is where the guys from MB&F came from. It's okay. one of those. If you so Harry Winston does some really avant-garde sort of out there, like tantalum and other kind of bizarre material watches, and that's where I'm pretty sure
That's a good looking watch.
I don't know if it was those or Urwerk or something, but one of those like high-end independent guys started at Harry Winston.
Wow. Yeah, I've never really looked at. There was a Harry Winston AD. Oh, there you go.
Wow,
yeah, there you go. And and Orange Hand just answered me. Yeah, Max Buser did some work here.
Series.
And then as soon as you see those, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
That that television one is crazy looking.
Oh yeah,
look at that thing. Wow. What is going on in that thing?
Yeah, look, there's scheduling appointments.
I want to see that watch closer. What is
oh, there we go.
Holy cow. What is happening there?
It's like 3 tourbillons. Or 3. And they're not tourbillons, are they? Wow. Yeah, incredible.
That's awesome looking.
These are the brands that you never hear anybody talking about on YouTube, do you?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
these are crazy.
I think there's a good reason why no one talks about Harry Winston. They're owned by the Swatch Group, and Swatch has no idea how to sell a watch. So,
because that is crazy. Look at that watch.
If someone buys a Swatch watch, a watch from a Swatch Group company, it's purely by accident. It's despite the efforts to sell it to them.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there you go. Well, that was a great thing to finish on there. Well, thanks everyone for being so. Any last thoughts from anyone, or should we close it down?
No, my last thought is I'm looking at the crystal on the back of that Harry Winston and just thinking how insane that must be to make that thing even remotely waterproof.
Yeah, I'm blown away right now looking at this watch. I'm like fascinated.
Yeah, I never knew they did anything like that, to be honest. Well, that was a great water resistant 3-bar. So it's speed.
We got to give props to whoever said this. Was it Whole Milk? Huge suggestion. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Forget. Let's just give
Bruno.
Bruno actually.
Bruno.
Yeah.
Props to Bruno.
Yeah. Awesome.
That was nowhere on my radar. That's awesome.
No, that's great. Actually, I didn't realize they did these either. So. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for being so active in the comments. Thank you to everyone on the panel for your time. And we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk.
Good night and happy Easter, everybody.
See you, everyone.